As the saying goes, one should never hit a smiling person, not to mention a smiling person who was giving gifts. Elder Jing's tone softened a little. Alright, I'll take the things. You can go now. Well, Elder Jing, I have nothing to do. I think you're quite bored. Let's have a chat? Yun Chujio said with a smile. Elder Jing glared at her. Humph. I still have something to do. Please excuse me for not seeing you off. After Elder Jing said that, he closed the courtyard door with a bang. A certain Jio touched her nose. But, forget it. Who would want to chat with an old man like you? This guy rolled his eyes. He had wanted to ease his relationship with Elder Jing and take the opportunity to learn something about talismans and formations, but now it seemed impossible. Unfortunately, she couldn't enter the second floor of the library as a handyman. Otherwise, she could learn by herself. This fellow turned around and left Elder Jing's courtyard. She saw some inner sect disciples standing not far away, looking at her with unfriendly eyes. This fellow raised her eyebrows. Was she looking for trouble? When ordinary people saw such a scene, they would definitely think of a way to avoid it. However, a certain Jio was not an ordinary person. She swaggered towards the crowd. Although the crowd glared at her, no one did anything. After all, they all knew that this fellow was very valiant. She was not afraid of being locked up in a hole of thought. They were afraid. When Yun Chujio saw these inner sect disciples, her heart moved. She actually thought of a good idea. Inner sect disciples would have regular Dharma-imparting classes. Other than cultivation techniques, there would also be Dharma-imparting classes such as alchemy and talismans. She could totally attend them. Hence, this fellow stopped in his tracks and suddenly turned around to walk towards a disciple. That disciple was shocked and stuttered, "You, what are you going to do? When will you have Dharma-imparting classes?" The disciple stuttered, "There will be a Dharma teaching class on the first day of every month." "What are you going to do?" Yun Chujio asked again, "What about the other peaks?" "Each peak is different. Tianji Peak is on the 5th day, and Migres Peak is on the 10th day." Yun Chujio silently memorized the dates of the Dharma teaching classes in each peak. When she was about to leave, she saw those people staring at her with unfriendly eyes, and her little temper flared up again. She pointed at those inner sect disciples. "All of you be careful. If you ever look at me with that kind of unwelcome gaze again, well, go up the life and death arena and kill you." This fellow was completely conditioned. Because he was used to threatening people on the arena in the murderous element sect, he would pick fights with anyone he disliked. Those inner sect disciples were dumbfounded. Their primordial chaos sect had always valued harmony and solidarity. They despised forcing people onto the life and death arena, and it was also something the sect disliked. Therefore, they had never seen a certain Jio who would pick a fight without a word. Therefore, they did not know how to react for a while. They were all dumbstruck. Yun Chujio curled her lips and swaggered off. When Yun Chujio had walked far away, everyone was like they had just woken up from a dream and exploded. Fuck. That Yun Chujio stayed in the Killing Origin sect for 3 months. Why does she look like a bandit? Wasn't she the same in the past? She's just more arrogant now. Sooner or later, someone will teach her a lesson. Alright, why do you think she asked about the time for the Dharma impartation class? Could she be up to no good? Anyway, it's not a good thing. Let's inform our fellow disciples from the other peaks about this news so that they will be on guard. Yun Chujio did not know that because of her words, the inner disciples of the 7 peaks were all jittery. They were afraid that this guy would go to their teaching class and cause trouble. The wind soon reached Master Bailey's ears. Master Bailey felt that there were a few more white hairs. He knew that this Yun Chujio would cause trouble as soon as she returned. Thus, Master Bailey personally issued a command from the sect leader. He talked about a lot of things. The main idea was that Yun Chujio was not allowed to leave the foot of Tianshu Peak. If she wanted to go for a walk, she could go to the back of Tianshu Peak. Yun Chujio was holding her breath. Didn't she just want to go and listen to a lesson? Why was she grounded? Fuck, if she was grounded, she could go to the back of the mountain to refine pills. At that time, she would not be blamed for destroying the back of the mountain. who asked Old Man Bailey not to let her run around. However, this guy also knew that she could not let others know that she had the heaven and earth furnace. Anyway, when the time came, she could just say that the heavenly lightning was here to strike her. Therefore, in the dead of night the next day, this guy sneaked to the back of the Tianshu Peak. Yun Chujio found a hidden place, opened the isolation array, and began to refine pills. This guy mumbled while refining pills, "Heavenly thunder, oh heavenly thunder, I'm refining pills again, hurry up and strike me. Come to little Gio." This guy refined for quite a while, and seeing that the sky was almost bright, there was no movement, not even the spiritual power ball that Jinji told her about last time, let alone heavenly thunder. This fellow rubbed his chin and pondered. It was probably because he was refining pills in the reflection cave last time that he didn't have enough spiritual power to trigger the spiritual power ball. This time, when he was refining pills outside, there was no way to trigger the spiritual power ball. As for heavenly lightning, it was likely that it had learned its lesson and knew that it wouldn't be able to kill her, so it didn't come to assist her. This fellow felt so stifled. Why was it so difficult to get struck by lightning? Did she have to think of a way to enter the meditation cave to absorb the lightning? Perhaps she could try refining pills inside, in case it attracted the heavenly lightning. Thus, this fellow packed up her things, then withdrew from the isolation array and returned to her dormitory in a sullen mood. She had left, but the smell of refining pills didn't spread out because of the isolation array just now. As she left, the rich medicinal fragrance immediately attracted many low-level demon beasts in the back mountain. Those demon beasts rushed over one after another. They greedily breathed in the remaining medicinal fragrance and followed the scent to chase outside Yun Chujio's courtyard. Yun Chujio had just returned to the courtyard. Just as she was about to wash up, she felt the earth shaking and the mountains shaking. This fellow was shocked. Did the earth dragon turn over? The moment this fellow left the courtyard, he saw dozens of demon beasts wanting to pounce on her with incomparable enthusiasm. Moreover, there were demon beasts running towards her from afar. This fellow had a dumbfounded look on his face. Could it be that it was Go Weiba demon again? Guai Chao, who was the scapegoat, felt very stifled. This clearly had nothing to do with it, all right? It was all your own fault. Fortunately, Yun Chujio quickly realized what was going on. She quickly used a few cleaning spells to remove the medicinal pill fragrance from her body. Only then did those low-level demon beasts quieten down a little. However, it was unknown what these low-level demon beasts were thinking. They actually stayed close to Yun Chujio's courtyard and did not leave. It was easier to deal with the smaller ones. The destructive power of those large-scale demon beasts was astonishing. They broke the frame of the dormitory around Yun Chujio. Therefore, Yun Chujio's dormitory became the only dormitory that stood upright at the foot of the mountain. Those odd job workers were simply out of luck. The perfectly fine house had turned into ruins when they woke up. What the hell had happened? The odd job workers found that among the ruins, only one courtyard was intact. At a glance, it turned out to be Yun Chujio's courtyard. At once, everyone thought that this was Yun Chujio's fault again. These people did not cook or work anymore. They all went to the miscellaneous office to complain. The manager of the miscellaneous office felt that he could not handle this matter, so he ran to the law enforcement office. Manager Zhong's head was buzzing. He knew that once Yun Chujio returned, his law enforcement department would not have a day of peace. Thus, Manager Zhong braced himself and brought a few law enforcement disciples to look for Yun Chujio. From afar, he could hear the cries of the demon beasts. Well, the original dormitory area of the servants was now completely occupied by the demon beasts. In fact, these low-level demon beasts did not pose any threat to the safety of the servants. It was just that these demon beasts were specially raised in the back mountain by the mixed origin sect, so the servants did not carry out any hunting. The Hunyuan sect would raise these demon beasts in the back mountain because the demon beasts were more sensitive than humans in certain aspects and could be used as a warning. Moreover, the back mountain was very large. Raising some low-level demon beasts was also to maintain the ecological balance. Manager Zhong led the law enforcement disciples through the encirclement of the demon beasts with great difficulty and saw Yun Chujio eating her breakfast. The crowd was furious. She had caused so much trouble, yet she was still eating and drinking there. It was really great. Yun Chujio, what is going on? Why are these monsters gathering outside your courtyard? Manager Zhong shouted sternly. Yun Chujio spread her hands. I also want to know. I guess they came to relieve my boredom because they saw that I was too bored. This fellow thought to herself that she was also very helpless. She had chased her away, but she couldn't chase her away. What the hell? Didn't she just refine pills for a while? Did she have to stay here and not leave? Nonsense. Nonsense. Manager Zhong saw that Yun Chujio was like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water, so he didn't bother to talk nonsense with her. He ordered the law enforcement disciples and servants to drive away the monsters. The beasts had originally planned to wait for Yun Chujio to continue refining pills, but now that she didn't make any movements, and someone came to chase her away, they had no choice but to return to the back of the mountain reluctantly. Manager Zhong also sent people to patrol the edge of the back of the mountain to prevent the beasts from coming out to cause trouble again. Now, a very important question came: how to deal with the culprit. Generally speaking, those who were identified as criminal suspects would have to defend themselves. A certain Geo wished that she could be locked up in a hole of thought, so she completely ignored Manager Zhong's question and acted as if she could do nothing to him. Manager Zhong had no choice but to report it to Elder Chu of the law enforcement department. Elder Chu then rushed to find Master Bailey and told him about the matter. Master Bailey felt that this was just a coincidence. After all, no matter how evil Yun Chujio was, she could not command so many demonic beasts. However, this little girl was really a troublemaker. How could she cause trouble wherever she went? Elder Chu said from the side, Master, I think this little girl's personality is too naughty. We should temper her personality. Otherwise, she will cause trouble again. Master Bailey thought to himself, do you think I don't want to? He had already locked himself in the cave for 3 times, yet he didn't see any progress. Putting everything else aside, if an ordinary Hunyuan sect disciple had gone to the Killing Yuan sect for 3 months, they would definitely be tortured beyond recognition when they returned. But this person, she had almost turned the Killing Yuan sect upside down. Elder Chu smiled. Sect Master, I know what you're worried about, but I have a way to temper her character. What way? Master Bailey asked impatiently. He really couldn't do anything to Yun Chujio now. Although that little girl had caused trouble repeatedly, it wasn't to the extent of being expelled from the sect. Sect Master, other than the meditation cave, doesn't our primordial chaos sect also have the meditation cave? We can lock her in the meditation cave to temper her temperament. I reckon that when she comes out, she will be much more restrained, Elder Chu said as he stroked his beard. Master Bailey's eyes instantly lit up. How could he have forgotten about the meditation cave? The meditation cave wasn't a place to punish disciples. On the contrary, only disciples who were favored by the sect could enter it. The Tranquil Heart Cave could make people feel calmer. This way, when they cultivated, they could get rid of distracting thoughts and avoid inner demons. Since the Tranquil Heart Cave could only accommodate 3 people at most, the competition among the disciples was very fierce. Generally speaking, only the successor disciples were qualified to enter. Could Elder Chu, tell Manager Zhong to lock Yun Chujio in the Tranquil Heart Cave. Master Bailey finally let out a sigh of relief. No matter how bad-tempered a person was, after staying in the Cave of Tranquility for a period of time, they would be much calmer. Therefore, after this Yun Chujio came out of the cave, she would definitely be able to restrain her mischievous personality. Elder Chu immediately informed Manager Zhong of Master Bailey's intention. Manager Zhong immediately read out the punishment decision in front of everyone. Yun Chujio originally thought that she would be punished to go to the meditation cave, but she didn't expect that she would be brought into some meditation cave now. By the way, what was this meditation cave for? This guy followed the principle of asking if he didn't understand, and asked Manager Zhong with a smile, Manager Zhong, what is the meditation cave? It's the same as the meditation cave. Is there any spiritual power attack inside? Manager Zhong curled his lips. Only disciples with good aptitude who are valued by the sect have the right to enter the meditation cave. As for you, you big head. Yun Chujio was furious. Wasn't it obvious that she was the only good-for-nothing? Manager Zhong immediately regretted after blabbering. This bad boy was someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It would be bad if he were to fly into a rage. Thus, he quickly added, the Tranquil Heart Cave has the teachings of the previous sect master, and there are also tasks to temper one's mind. Therefore, the sect master has high hopes for you to be able to enter. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. She did not think that old man Bai Li had high hopes for her. He was probably planning to lock her up and torture her. The Tranquil Heart Cave was an extremely boring place. If she stayed in there for a few months, wouldn't it take her little life? That was not right. Just now, Manager Zhong did not say how long he would lock her up. Could it be that he was planning to lock her up for life? Yun Chujio answered her question. Manager Zhong smiled and said, there is no fixed time limit for the Tranquil Heart Cave. As long as you pass the assessment inside, you can be teleported out immediately. Junior sister Yun is so smart. I reckon she will be out in 3 months. So that's the case. So you mean that if I pass the assessment in 3 days, I can also be teleported out? The corner of Manager Zhong's eyes twitched. He thought to himself, you really dare to say that? 3 days? With your character, you might not be able to come out even after 3 years. Although Manager Zhong was cursing in his heart, he said, of course, as long as junior sister Yun can pass the test, she can be teleported out. After hearing Manager Zhong's words, Yun Chujio finally felt at ease. Alright, this fellow had this kind of mysterious confidence. Didn't he just pass the test? It was a piece of cake. Although the surrounding disciples were somewhat envious of Yun Chujio being able to enter the Tranquil Heart Cave, but once they thought that this fellow might be locked inside forever, their hearts instantly felt at ease. It was said that the assessment inside the Tranquil Heart Cave was very patient. This fellow would definitely not be able to come out without a year or so of time. He deserved it. Yun Chujio waved her hand and said to Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu, before your house is built, stay here with me. This fellow actually felt a little guilty. Those demonic beasts did not wait for him to say anything and attacked him. As a result, Jin Ji and Yi Bingyi's courtyard was also turned into ruins. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu naturally gave her some instructions, but they were used to this guy being punished every few days, so they weren't too worried. After Yun Chujio gave her instructions, she was escorted to Jingxin Cave. Yun Chujio thought that Jingxin Cave was at the back of Tianji Peak, just like Sigua Cave. She didn't expect it to be at the back of Yaoguang Peak. Since Yaoguang Peak was the furthest away from Tianshu Peak, Disaster 9 hadn't come to Yaoguang Peak yet. The disciples of Yaoguang Peak were almost all out, all flocking to the side of Jingxin Cave to watch the show. Most of them had the mentality of gossiping, while a small number of them were extremely unbalanced. These people were mostly inner disciples and some core disciples. This Jingxin Cave was a place where inner disciples and core disciples had to fight for a spot. Who would have thought that Yun Chujio would be able to take advantage of it this time? It was really infuriating. Yun Chujio didn't care what they were thinking. She raised her head and took a look at the so-called Tranquil Heart Cave. Not to mention other things, the words, Tranquil Heart Cave, were written quite well. Cough cough, at least it was better than what she wrote. The disciple guarding Tranquil Heart Cave had already received Master Bailey's notice. Therefore, he only asked a simple question. Then, he let Yun Chujio stand in the middle of the teleportation array and sent her into the Tranquil Heart Cave. When Yun Chujio regained her sight, she found that she was already in a large cave. There were 2 disciples who were meditating in the cave. When they saw Yun Chujio enter, they only glanced at her and then continued to meditate. Yun Chujio saw that the 2 of them were wearing the clothes of true disciples. She thought to herself that Manager Zhong really didn't lie to her. Those who entered this Jingxin Cave were all disciples that were favored by the sections. Yun Chujio looked at the 2 of them a few times and then began to look at this so-called Cave of Tranquility. There were words carved around the cave. The words written on them were nothing more than proverbs that would allow one to cultivate one's body and character. Yun Chujio scoffed at this. If one wanted to talk about reason, who could beat her? This fellow walked around and found that other than the words on the wall, there was nothing special. The spiritual energy inside was even denser than outside. Senior brothers, this is the first time we have met. Please take care of me. I am Yun Chujio, the handyman in the kitchen. How should I address you? These two had already been in the Tranquil Heart Cave for almost 2 months. Moreover, they were usually engrossed in cultivation, so they had never heard of Yun Chujio. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, they were all stunned. The worst that could enter this Tranquil Heart Cave was an inner sect disciple. How did a handyman like her get in? When the two of them saw that Yun Chujio was actually at the 6th level of the Ling Shen realm, they were even more puzzled. Could it be that in the 3 months they had been here, the primordial chaos sect had undergone such a great change? The two of them looked at each other and said, "En Lin Chuan of Alcade Peak. Shangguan Hao of Migres Peak." Yun Chujio nodded. "So it's senior brother and senior brother Shangguan. Nice to meet you. How long have you two been here? Is it fun in here?" And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao's eyes twitched. Fun? Was the Tranquil Heart Cave a fun place? Could it be that this Yun Chujio was specially sent by the sect to temper their temperaments? However, Shangguan Hao still replied, "We've been here for nearly 2 months. This is a place to temper our temperaments. Naturally, there's nothing fun about it. Junior sister Yun, we're going to meditate and cultivate. Please go ahead." If an ordinary person heard this, they would immediately shut up. However, Yun Chujio said, "Senior brother Shangguan, what you said is wrong. Didn't you already say that? You are here to temper your minds. Since you are here to temper your minds, why are you all meditating and tempering your minds? If you want to meditate outside, you can meditate at any time. Why do you have to come here to meditate?" And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were confused by this guy's preposterous words. It made sense. It seemed like it was a waste for them to meditate in this cave of tranquility. However, what else could they do without meditation? They had memorized the proverbs on the wall thoroughly. As for the task of the test, it would only start at a fixed time. They really had nothing to do. "Senior brothers, let's play cards." "We have nothing to do. Let me tell you, this card game is also to temper our minds. Because we want to win without being arrogant or discouraged. If we can't win, we can be smug, and if we can't lose, we can't be impatient," Yun Chujio said as she took out the self-made cards. What nonsense! And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were dumbfounded. Why were they talking about how to temper their minds just now, and now they were talking about playing cards? It was the first time they heard that playing cards could temper one's mind. However, the two of them thought that Yun Chujio was most likely sent by the sect to temper them. How about playing a few rounds? In addition, the two of them were indeed bored after being locked up here for more than 2 months, so they agreed after some hesitation. Therefore, the three of them began to play cards. On the other side, after the news of Yun Chujio being locked up in the Tranquil Heart Cave spread, a few restless people came to the meeting hall of Dubhe Peak to see Master Bailey. Of course, these restless people basically had connections with Yun Chujio. The first one to bear the brunt was Mountain Master Zhua of Tianji Peak. In another 3 months, another snow jade silkworm would be mating. If Yun Chujio didn't come out by then, what would happen to his snow jade silkworm? Elder Jing was the second to arrive. His thoughts were completely different from Mountain Master Zhua's. He wished that he could lock Yun Chujio up in the Tranquil Heart Cave for a period of time so that she wouldn't come out to cause trouble. As for the other 5 peak masters, they were here to watch the show. Although Yun Chujio was a troublemaker, it had to be said that it was because she had returned that there would be a show every 2 to 3 days. Seeing that everyone's focus was on Yun Chujio, Master Bailey explained the matter briefly, then he said, "Mountain Master Zhua, you don't have to be anxious. If she doesn't come out in 3 months, we can discuss it then. No matter what, let her stay in the Tranquil Heart Cave for a period of time first to temper her temperament. Otherwise, I'm really afraid of repeating the same mistakes as the murderous Yuan sect." When everyone heard Master Bailey's words, they all nodded their heads in agreement. They already knew most of the matters of the Essence Murder sect. Although Yun Chujio had resolved a disaster for the Essence Murder sect, this fellow had also caused a lot of trouble for the Essence Murder sect. Scamming countless disciples was secondary. It was said that this fellow had almost blown up 20 self-reflection holes in the Essence Murder sect. Moreover, he had stolen more than half of the green jade lotus root. If it wasn't for the matter at the Divine Devil Hall, the green jade prawns would probably have been killed as well. That's right, there was also that thorn of his. After hundreds of thousands of years, it finally bore a black egg, but it was swallowed by this fellow. Fortunately, he still had a conscience and gave a seed to the wood peak. When everyone thought of this, they suddenly felt that Master Bailey was really too wise. He was right. Such a thing should be locked up so that it would not come out to harm others. Mountain Master, he had a quick temper. He raised his loud voice and said, "Didn't you say that we can watch the scene inside the tranquil cave in real time? Old Jing, hurry up and show it to us. I reckon that little girl must be so bored that she's about to bang her head against the wall, right?" After being reminded by Mountain Master, everyone finally remembered that the meditation cave was an ancient magic formation, but the tranquil cave was not. The meditation cave had been built by the disciples of the primordial chaos sect in recent generations. Therefore, Elder Jing was very familiar with the formation of the meditation cave. Therefore, Elder Jing took out a shadow stone. After forming a seal, the situation inside the meditation cave appeared on the shadow stone. When everyone saw the image on it, they almost vomited blood. Inside the meditation cave, 3 people each sat on a small stool with a table in the middle. They were playing cards. Moreover, 2 of the male disciples had a lot of notes stuck on their foreheads. That bad guy was smiling brightly. Did I see wrong? They seem to be playing cards? Mountain Master, he rubbed his eyes and said uncertainly, "What did I see wrong? They are playing cards. I'm so angry. That brat Linchuan, I let him go in to temper his mind, but he actually played cards with that Yunchujio. He's really not good." The one who spoke was Mountain Master and of Arcade Peak. And Linchuan was his son, and he had always placed high hopes on him. He originally felt that Linchuan's character was a little unstable, which was why he sent him to the Tranquil Heart Cave. He originally thought that it would have some effect, but now that he saw it, he almost exploded in anger. This bastard brat actually played cards with that bad news bag. It was fine if he played, but it seemed like he had lost miserably. It was really embarrassing. On the other side, Peak Master Shin of Migres Peak also had a bad look on his face. Shangguan Hao was his disciple, and he was usually quite steady. Why was he also fooling around? Really, you guys are really? Sect Master, I see that you locked Yun Chujio into the Tranquil Heart Cave not to temper her temperament, but to temper the temperament of those 2 scoundrels. Mountain Master, he said with a wide grin, he thought that Yun Chujio was really interesting. How could she think of playing cards in the Tranquil Heart Cave? Mountain Master Zhua of Tianji Peak said weakly, Well, maybe this idea wasn't put forward by Yun Chujio. Could it be that it was put forward by the other 2 people? The others couldn't be bothered with him. He asked such a stupid question. Besides that bad guy, who else in the Chaos Origin sect would do something like playing cards in the Tranquil Heart Cave? Mountain Master Zhua rubbed his nose. Alright, just pretend that he didn't say anything. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. All of a sudden, the meeting hall was eerily quiet. Master Bailey's face turned green and red and white. He had thought that this was a good way to temper the little girl's character, but who would have thought that this fellow would lead the 2 good children astray as soon as he entered? Suddenly, Elder Jing snorted coldly. Don't worry, let her gloat for a while first. When it's time to complete the mission, she'll know how powerful she is. Everyone thought for a moment. That's right. There was still a mission in the Tranquil Heart Cave. If she couldn't finish the mission, she wouldn't be able to come out. Therefore, she had no choice but to finish the mission. Elder Jing continued, You guys stay here and watch. They'll go to the Formation Eye to make some changes and increase the difficulty of the mission. Mountain Master Zhuo wanted to stop her, but he held back when he saw the expressions of Mountain Master In and Mountain Master Shin. Little girl, it's not that I don't want to help you, but you're just too unpopular. Inside the Tranquil Heart Cave, the three of them were having a great time. It was the first time that in Linchuan and Shangguan Hao had played the so-called Fight the Landlord. Naturally, they had lost miserably, but the two of them were addicted to it. At this moment, a dignified voice sounded. The Tranquil Heart mission will be activated immediately. And Linchuan said in annoyance, "Oh no. I almost forgot about the Tranquil Heart mission. Junior sister little Gio, you can just learn from us later. Actually, the mission isn't difficult, but it requires patience." After playing cards for a while, junior sister Yun had become junior sister Xiaojio. It had to be said that Yun Chujia's ability to win people's hearts was really superb. Yun Chujio nodded. She was still very curious about the so-called meditation mission, and it seemed to mean that there was more than one mission. Yun Chujio put the cards and the pony into her storage ring and waited expectantly for the so-called meditation mission 1. A moment later, several colorful bubbles appeared in the stone room and flew in the air like mischievous butterflies. Yun Chujio was dumbfounded. What was she doing? The person who designed this stage might not be very smart. If it were her, she would get some edible spirit fruits and fly in the air. If she caught them, she could still eat them. At this moment, the voice from before said, "The rule of the meditation task is to catch the corresponding color bubbles. You will pass the stage after accumulating 100 of them." Yun Chujio could not help but wonder, what kind of mission was this? Couldn't he just grab them with a casual grab? What was so difficult about it? And Lin Chuan seemed to have seen through Yun Chujio's thoughts and said with a bitter face, "Junior sister Xiaojio, do you think that this mission is very simple? Then you are wrong." The bubbles Lin Linchuan wanted to capture were red, while the bubbles Shangguan Hao wanted to capture were yellow. Seeing that the mission had begun, the two of them quickly began to capture the corresponding color bubbles. Yun Chujio stretched her neck and waited for a long time, but none of the bubbles flew towards her. This fellow was anxious. She pointed at the bubbles with her hands on her waist and cursed, "Which one is mine? Hurry up and fly over. If you still don't come over, I'll use lightning to chop you all into pieces." Finally, a bubble flew towards Yun Chujio with a crooked shape. Yun Chujio saw the color of the bubble and was so angry that she wanted to bang her head against the wall. What happened to the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple? What the fuck was wrong with giving her a black one? Was he trying to make her unable to complete the mission forever? In the meeting hall, Mountain Master he laughed unkindly. "Ha! Old Jing is really too wicked. He must be taking revenge for his personal grudge. There is no black in those bubbles at all. Isn't it obvious that he is trying to make the little girl unable to complete the mission?" The others also laughed. This Elder Jing was really mean. Now, they would see what the little girl would do. She would probably be so angry that she would hit the wall. At this time, the bubble had already flown into Yun Chujio's hand. It was pitch black, just like Yun Chujio's current face. This guy threw the 2 bamboo baskets filled with talismans on the ground and snorted coldly, "Whether it's the Qi Ling or the person behind the array formation, listen to me. Either you change the color of the bubbles in my hand to another color, or you add black bubbles into those bubbles, or I'll blow up the Tranquil Heart Cave. If you don't believe me, let's give it a try." And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao, who were still trying their best to catch the bubbles, were almost scared to death. What the hell was that? Blow up the Cave of Tranquility? Was this junior sister Gio's brain damaged? Besides, were there really talismans in those 2 big bamboo baskets? Could it be some worthless low-level talismans? The two of them couldn't be bothered to catch the bubbles. After all, they didn't need another day or 2. They bent down to take a look. Oh god. They were all flame-burst talismans, and they were all high-grade. Where did this little girl get so many talismans? The two of them were shocked, and the people in the meeting hall were even more shocked. It's over. As I said, those who get close to the vermilion bird will be red, while those who get close to the ink will be black. This Yun Chujio was originally also mischievous, but she didn't need to be so bold. Now, she has stayed in the Killing Yuan sect for 3 months. Now, she is simply a devil of the chaotic world. Mountain Master said angrily. That's right, this little girl is too bold. No wonder she dared to blow up the self-reflection cave of the Killing Yuan sect. She is simply too bold. Mountain Master Shen echoed with a gloomy face. I think this little girl's character is not bad. If she can't do it, then beat her up. A cultivator must have such a domineering attitude. Mountain Master, he said with his mouth wide open. Mountain Master Zhua swallowed his saliva. He thought to himself, if this really blew up the Tranquil Heart Cave, he would probably be locked in the meditation cave for a few years. When that time came, what would happen to his snow jade silkworm? Thus, Mountain Master Zhua hurriedly said to Master Bailey, Sect Master, hurry up and ask old Jing to calm down. Don't force that little girl into a corner. This old Jing is the same. Even if you did something, don't be so obvious. Isn't this clearly making the little girl explode? Master Bailey only felt his head buzzing. If he had known earlier, he would have locked her up in the cave of reflection. If he let her blow up the cave of meditation, he would simply be a sinner of the primordial chaos sect. Master Bailey quickly sent a message to Elder Jing, asking him to think of a way to appease Yun Chujio so that she wouldn't really blow up the cave of tranquility. Soon, Yun Chujio discovered that black bubbles began to appear in the bubbles floating in the air. However, compared to other colored bubbles, there were pitifully few black bubbles. However, she also knew that she should stop now. If she continued to cause trouble, it would not end well. Therefore, this guy put away the 2 baskets of talismans and said to the 2 people who were dumbstruck, Why are you looking at me? Hurry up and catch the bubbles. And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao nodded blankly. They seemed to understand why this guy was locked in the cave of tranquility. Yun Chujio jumped up. When she saw a black bubble, the bubble flew away with a whoosh. This guy thought that she must have been too careless. So, she jumped up again. This time, the tip of her hand had already touched the black bubble. Unexpectedly, the bubble turned green and failed again. This guy was so tired that he finally caught a bubble. Unexpectedly, he accidentally used too much force and burst. This guy was so busy that his forehead was covered in sweat, but in the end, he didn't catch a single bubble. And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao were in a better condition than her, and each of them caught 2 bubbles. When the mission was over, a mission board appeared. The number under Lin Xuan's name was 162, and under Shangguan Hao's name was 168. The 2 of them were almost the same. As for Yun Chujio's name, there was only the pitiful one after it. Yes, it was a gift. And Lin Xuan was afraid that Yun Chujio would get angry. He quickly tried to persuade her, Junior Sister Jio, the first day is inevitably a little strange. We only caught it after getting used to it for a few days. After you catch it for a few days, you will slowly learn some skills. Don't be anxious. Yes, Junior Sister Jio. Practice makes perfect. It will be fine slowly. Shangguan Hao also tried to persuade her. Unexpectedly, Yun Chujio giggled. You don't have to persuade me. It's just some broken bubbles, right? I just wanted to hide in this cave of tranquility for a few days. When I went out, there was no one to play cards with me, so I deliberately didn't catch them. And Lin Xuan, Shangguan Hao, can you die if you don't brag? Just pretend. Who was the one who jumped around and cursed for a long time because he didn't catch the black bubble? Who was the one who was so angry that he burst the blue bubble because the black bubble he was about to catch had turned blue? However, the meeting hall was filled with cheers and laughter, especially Elder Jing, who had returned triumphantly. He was as proud as he could be, and he could finally take revenge for what he had done in the entrance exam. Not only were there the least number of black bubbles, but after the bubbles turned black, their speed was twice as fast as the other bubbles. Did that little girl want to complete the mission? In her dreams, Mountain Master Zhua secretly curled his lips. She's already so old and she's trying to compete with a little girl. How shameless! Little girl, aren't you full of bad ideas? Hurry up and think of a solution. The snow jade silkworm of Tianji Peak is still waiting for you. Master Bailey finally let out a sigh of relief and said to the others, "The next mission will take several hours. If you guys are busy," Master Bailey wanted to say, "if you guys have something to do, hurry up and do it. Don't waste time here." He didn't expect everyone to say in unison, "Master, we are not busy. We are all very free." Master Bailey suddenly felt very tired. Why was he so tired? Master Bailey looked at the crowd speechlessly. You guys really have nothing better to do. However, since they all wanted to stay, it wasn't good for him to chase them away. Besides, he also wanted to see what kind of earth-shaking, earth-shattering behavior that Bad News Bag would do next. At this time, inside the Cave of Tranquility, the three of them once again set up a small table to play cards. And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao originally thought that Yun Chujio was pretending as if nothing had happened. In fact, she was very depressed. However, after a while, they realized that this guy really didn't take the matter of bubbles to heart. He was smiling brilliantly. And Lin Xuan saw that this guy was smiling without any heart. He couldn't help but remind her, "Junior Sister Gio, are you really not worried about the matter of bubbles? You can only go out when you have accumulated 100 pieces. I heard that there was once a senior brother who was locked up in this Cave of Tranquility for more than a year before he went out. There are always more ways than difficulties. Isn't it useless to worry? If that's the case, what's the point of worrying so much? Let's play cards first. After the game is over, I'll think about it carefully. I'll definitely think of a good way to get twice the result with half the effort." Huh, bombs? You guys lost again. And Lin Xuan was holding his breath. He kindly reminded her that she actually won again when they were distracted. He didn't believe that she could always lose after playing cards. Again, Shangguan Hao's temperament was more stable than in Lin Xuan's. He asked with a smile, "Junior Sister Gio, why were you locked in the Cave of Tranquility? I think you came in for a different reason than us." Yun Chujio pouted. "Don't mention it. I don't know what's wrong with the sect master. Ever since I came back from the murderous Yuan sect, he has been targeting me everywhere, grounded and monitored. I don't know what happened last night. The demonic beasts at the back of Tianshu Peak destroyed the yard of the odd job workers. He put the blame on my head. Do you think I'm innocent?" And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao were stunned. The murderous Yuan sect. Why did she go to the murderous Yuan sect all of a sudden? When the two of them asked, Yun Chujio told them about her heroic deeds. She told them about how she cheated the disciples of the murderous Yuan sect of 300 million spirit stones and almost blew up their self-reflection cave. She also told them about how she saved the murderous origin sect while stealing the green jade lotus root. The cards in Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao's hands fell to the ground. "Oh God, Master of the sect, what are you thinking? Are you sure that you are not messing with them by locking such a bad bag with them?" They were still anxious for this little girl, worried that she would get angry because she could not catch the bubbles. With such a bad bag, no one would be willing to let her go out and harm others, right? However, Lin Xuan was not a person who kept to himself. Otherwise, his father would not have sent him to the Cave of Tranquility. He thought that this little girl was really interesting. Therefore, the two of them had the same taste and began to exchange all kinds of tricks to trick others. Shangguan Hao, who was at the side, felt very tired. With these two people around, how could he calm down? It would be good if he didn't feel troubled. "Senior brother, and how often does this calm down mission come out? It can't be that it only comes out once a day, right? And from what I hear, there are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other missions besides mission 1? How many missions are there in total?" Yun Chujio asked curiously. And Lin Xuan stretched out a palm. Mission 1 is not the most abnormal. The missions after that are more and more abnormal. There's no pattern to this mission. However, there are basically 2 or 3 missions every day. I reckon that after we play for a while more, there will be missions. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. After Lin Xuan finished speaking, he looked at Yun Chujio's expression. He thought that after hearing what he said, Yun Chujio would definitely show a worried expression. Who would have thought that the little girl in front of him would show an eager expression? She seemed to be impatient. Really? That's great. Then I won't be bored anymore. I want to see how perverted the missions in this cave of tranquility are. Will there be another one like me? And Lin Chuan, Sheng Guanhao, all right, you win. You're crazy. As the three of them were talking, they heard the mission notification. The meditation mission will be activated immediately. And Lin Chuan said in surprise, why is it still mission 1? Normally, the same mission will not appear twice a day. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Maybe this mission was specifically targeted at her? However, there was always a way to solve it. Soon, the mission officially began. 7 colored bubbles appeared in the air again. To be exact, they were 8 colored bubbles because there were a few pitiful black bubbles occasionally. Even though Yun Chujio tried her best this time, she still couldn't catch a single black bubble. A certain Jiao said nonchalantly before Lin Chuan and Sheng Guanhao could comfort her, I'm just warming up. I'll catch at least 10 or 8 black bubbles the next time I start the mission. And Lin Chuan and Sheng Guanhao didn't say a word. They thought to themselves, just keep bragging. After about 2 hours, the meditation mission started again. This time, Yun Chujio still ended up so miserable that she didn't catch a single black bubble. The atmosphere in the meeting hall was exceptionally joyous. Everyone felt extremely comfortable in their hearts. So what if the little girl was able to cause trouble? Wasn't she still tormented to the point of losing her temper? As long as she did it a few more times, her short temper would definitely be worn down by quite a bit. After that, she would use the next task to continue polishing her temper. She believed that in the end she would definitely be able to turn a rotten trick into a miracle and let this bad news bag rest a little in the future. Mountain Master Zhuo silently cheered for a certain Jiao in his heart. Little girl, you have to work hard. You have to live up to your expectations. The snow jade silkworm is still waiting for you. Inside the tranquil heart cave, and Lin Chuan carefully glanced at a certain Jiao whose expression was gloomy. He thought to himself, didn't this fellow just say that he didn't take it to heart? Why did his expression change at this moment? Just as he was thinking about it, he heard Yun Chujio gnashing her teeth and saying, damn it. It's true that I can't tolerate it anymore. It's only the 3rd time. He's just making fun of me. I'm not playing cards anymore. I need to think of a countermeasure. I want to show the people behind me my power. And Lin Chuan and Sheng Guanhao looked at each other. Thinking of a countermeasure? Wasn't catching bubbles meant to calm one's mind and speed up? What other countermeasures could there be? Yun Chujio began to pace back and forth in the cave of tranquility. The images of those bubbles flashed through her mind quickly. The crux of the problem now was that when the bubbles of various colors were mixed together, when catching the black bubbles, the black bubbles were mixed within, and it was very difficult to catch them. Moreover, these damn bubbles would change color, and the changes were irregular. They changed color randomly, so there was no way to predict which bubbles would turn black in the next moment. If they were all black bubbles, why would she be worried? She had already caught dozens of them. As she thought about it, her eyes lit up. She had it. She stopped and walked to Lin Chuan and Sheng Guanhao's side. They were puzzled at first, then revealed a look of realization. A moment later, the meditation mission was activated once again. Everyone in the meeting hall was stunned to discover that the little girl seemed to have gone mad. They saw that the little girl was holding a treasured sword and began to pop bubbles. In a short while, there were only a few dozen bubbles left and they floated pitifully on top. Everyone was puzzled. Could it be that the little girl had gone mad because she had suffered too much? Besides, why did the 2 disciples let her destroy them? Did they not want to complete the mission? Mountain Master Zhuo rolled his eyes. He seemed to understand Yun Chujio's intention. TSK, what a smart little girl. Old Jing was going to be slapped in the face again. Just as everyone was puzzled, one of the floating bubbles turned black. Yun Chujio jumped up and grabbed at the bubble. The bubble tried its best to dodge. Unfortunately, if there were more bubbles, it could hide in them. There were only a few dozen bubbles in the air. It was too difficult for it to dodge Yun Chujio's claws. Yun Chujio caught the bubble as she wished and landed lightly on the ground. After a while, another bubble turned black. Yun Chujio did the same and caught another bubble. And Linchuan and Shangguan Hao would occasionally jump up, but their goal was obviously not to catch the corresponding color of the bubbles, but to help Yun Chujio intercept the black bubbles. By the time the mission ended, Yun Chujio had already caught 6 bubbles, and this was because the probability of the black bubbles appearing was relatively small, otherwise 10 would not be a problem. The meeting hall was eerily quiet. They were not stupid, so how could they not understand Yun Chujio's intention at this time? This was called not breaking or establishing. She would rather give up more bubbles and only keep the number that she could control. This way, as long as there were black bubbles inside, Yun Chujio would definitely be able to catch them. Moreover, there was in Linchuan and Shangguan Hao's help. At this rate, as she became more and more proficient, she could definitely leave more bubbles. She estimated that she would be able to complete the mission in 10 days at most. Mountain Master he grinned and laughed loudly. Old Jua Ha, I finally understand a sentence today. The devil is stronger than the ruler. It seems that you can't outsmart that little girl. Elder Jing was so angry that he was twitching. He glared fiercely at Mountain Master he sneered and said, "Don't be too full of yourself. Although that Yun Chujio is a little clever, the Tranquil Heart Cave has a total of 5 missions. This is only the first mission. The subsequent missions are more difficult than the previous ones. There will be times when she will cry." Mountain Master he curled his lips. "I think you should be the one who cries in the end. Anyway, I think highly of that little girl." Chapter 2789 Calming Heart Mission 2. When everyone heard Mountain Master He's words, they all turned to look at the Shadow Stone. As expected, Yun Chujio and the other 2 were using the alchemy furnace to wash the hot pot. The table was filled with dishes, and the most eye-catching dishes were the green jade lotus root and the green jade shrimp. Elder Jing snorted coldly, "It's just the desire to eat. I don't think there's anything delicious about the green jade lotus root. It's almost the same as the white radish." Mountain Master he snorted, "You make it sound like you've eaten it before." "Why haven't I eaten it before? A few days ago, that Yun Chujio gave me one." Elder Jing regretted immediately after saying that. Why did he blurt out this matter? The meeting hall was suddenly eerily silent. Then he heard Mountain Master he raise his loud voice and say, "Old Jing, I didn't expect that you would take the green jade lotus root that little girl gave you, and now you're still making things difficult for that little girl. You're too mean." Elder Jing's face turned red as he defended himself. "That's one thing. She gave me the green jade lotus root to thank me for saving her at the primordial killing sect. I increased the difficulty of the formation to temper her character and for her own good." "Tui, you're speaking so grandly. I think you're taking revenge for your own personal grudge. Isn't it just because that little girl said you did something indescribable last time that you bear a grudge in your heart?" Mountain Master he would never admit it. It was because he didn't eat the green jade lotus root that he vented his anger. Elder Jing was hopping mad. "You are spouting nonsense. I'm afraid that the bad thing will harm our primordial chaos sect. It's not some personal grudge. All right, the 2 of you, it seems that the meditation mission has been activated again. Let's pay attention to Yun Chujio's performance." Master Bailey rubbed his forehead. Sigh, his heart is so tired. The old and the young, why can't they be at ease? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Only then did Elder Jing fiercely glare at Mountain Master he and look at the Shadow Stone. At this time, the 3 of them had just eaten for a short while in the meditation cave. Before they were full, they heard the voice of the task say, "Meditation task number 2, it will be activated immediately." And Linchuan was furious. It wasn't easy for him to eat green jade lotus root and green jade prawns, but now the task came again. Usually, the task wouldn't come so frequently. Today was really unlucky. Yun Chujio put the items into her storage ring and thought to herself. She did not know what kind of perverse method the second meditation mission was. Just thinking about it made her a little excited. Clearing the level was the most fun. Just as Yun Chujio was thinking about it, she saw countless arrows floating in the air from all directions. However, These arrows did not seem to be real. Instead, they seemed to be illusory. The mission voice rang out with a notification. This round of mission doesn't allow spiritual attacks, doesn't allow the use of spiritual energy shields, doesn't allow the activation of defensive spiritual artifacts. Continue to hold on for 4 hours without getting hit by the arrows. What the hell? Doesn't allow spiritual attacks? Doesn't allow the use of spiritual energy shields? Doesn't allow the activation of defensive spiritual artifacts. Could it be that she was waiting to be shot into a porcupine? And Lin Chuan reminded her from the side, "Junior sister little Gio, although there are many restrictions, you can use your weapon to hit these arrows. However, these arrows are endless. Senior brother Shangguan and I have practiced for more than 2 months, but we can only last for an hour and a half." Only then did Yun Chujio come to a realization. She had said that if she didn't use anything and there were arrows everywhere, she wouldn't be able to dodge them even if she wanted to. Just as she was pondering, she heard the mission announcement. The arrows that were floating suddenly became sharp and shot towards the 3 of them. If one looked closely, they would find that more than half of the arrows were shot towards Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio quickly took out her rolling pin and finally managed to protect herself for the time being. She stole a glance and saw that Shangguan Hao and Lin Chuan were much more relaxed than her. The swords in their hands flew up and down, protecting their bodies tightly. This guy rolled his eyes. "Senior brothers, come here. Come here quickly. Let's form a triangle. This way we can save more than half of our strength and we can all pass." And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were stunned. Damn it, compared to this little girl, they were like idiots. It had been more than 2 months, and the 2 of them had never thought of working together. Even if they were back to back, they could still save a lot of strength. They were so stupid. The 2 of them didn't have time to think and quickly retreated to Yun Chujio's side. The 3 of them formed a triangle, and the pressure was greatly reduced. Moreover, Yun Chujio realized that there were more arrows flying towards her, so she changed her direction after a while. This way, she could take a breather while the arrows did not react. There was a strange silence in the meeting hall again. They had imagined many scenarios, but they had never thought that this so-called perverted mission would be so easily solved by that little girl. They had only guessed the beginning but not the end. They felt as if they had suffered a 10,000-point critical hit. Mountain Master, he laughed loudly. "Old Jing, how is it? You lost again, right? I advise you not to watch here, lest you end up being hit so hard that you want to hit the wall." Elder Jing's face was gloomy. He took out his identity jade token and gave a few instructions to his disciples. Then he said to Mountain Master Humph. "The second mission must be completed independently. They are cheating. I have already instructed them to declare the test invalid." Mountain Master "Good, very good. This old thing is getting more and more shameless." For hours later, just as Lin Chuan was about to celebrate his victory, he heard the voice of the mission say, "This round of the mission must be completed independently. You were cheating just now, so your results will be cancelled. 2 hours later, the meditation mission 2 will be activated again." And Lin Chuan cursed angrily, "Damn it! Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you wait until we were exhausted to say that you were just playing with us? There's no way to recover my strength in 2 hours. They'll just wait for those arrows to shoot at me later. Anyway, they're just illusions, so they only have a few red dots on my body." Although Shangguan Hao was also quite depressed, he was obviously calmer. "Forget it. Anyway, we entered the cave of tranquility to temper ourselves. It's okay to try a few more times." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. "Come, let's continue eating and replenish our strength. I just found out that more than half of the arrows are aimed at me. You might be able to hold on for 4 hours in one go." And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao did not pay much attention to it just now. Now that they heard what Yun Chujio said, they realized that it was true. The 2 of them looked at Yun Chujio sympathetically. No wonder there were so many missions today. It turned out that they were all aimed at her. She had just entered the sect not long ago, but she had already attracted the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the people. Junior sister little Gio was really a talent. And Lin Chuan laughed out loud. Junior's sister Little Ninth is right. I have to eat more and strive to complete the mission in one go later. Junior's sister Little Ninth, you don't have to be anxious. There will always be a way out. Who knows, you might come up with some good ideas later. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Yun Chujio actually had a way. In the past, she could command 8 immortal swords at the same time. With the strengthening of her spiritual sense, it was not a problem for her to command 12 swords at the same time. She could completely protect herself. However, she felt that it was best not to let others know about the abnormality of her spiritual sense, so she did not plan to expose it. Then the problem came. She could not hold on for 4 hours with only the rolling pin. Moreover, the mission given to her was an enhanced version. Forget it, let's wait and see. There will always be a way. The 3 of them continued to eat hot pot. And Lin Chuan saw that Yun Chujio did not eat much green jade prawns and green jade lotus root. He wondered if Little Ninth Junior sister did not have much in total, so she could not bear to eat it and left it for him and senior brother Shangguan to eat? And Lin Chuan was moved and said, Little Ninth Junior sister, these green jade lotus root and green jade prawns are rare. Senior brother Shangguan and I can taste them. You eat too. Yun Chujio said with disdain, you guys can eat them. I thought they were quite delicious at the beginning, but I got tired of them after eating too much. Now I feel that they are not as delicious as the beef shabu. And Lin Chuan, can I feed the dog the feelings I felt just now? After the 3 of them ate, half an hour later, the second meditation task began again. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao started to pull the arrows around them with all their might, intending to complete the task today. As for Yun Chujio, she sat on the small stool and set up a spiritual energy shield to protect herself. She held her chin and watched Lin Chuan and the others busy themselves. Everyone in the meeting hall was so angry that they were twitching. They were still waiting to see the little girl being shot into a hedgehog, but she was fine. Was she just throwing her life away? Did she not want to pass it all? Not long after, the little girl's spiritual energy barrier turned red. Needless to say, it was the mark of an arrow. Yet, the little girl was still very leisurely. She was holding a spiritual fruit in her hand as she chewed on it and cheered for Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao. Elder Jing snorted coldly. See that? Even if she has a belly full of bad water, there's nothing she can do. If she continues to be like this, she won't be able to come out for the rest of her life. Mountain Master, he was unconvinced and shouted, maybe the little girl just ate too much and doesn't want to move. If she had no other choice, would she be so carefree? She must have a plan. Elder Jing was naturally unconvinced, so the 2 of them started arguing again. Master Bailey felt that a few more strands of his hair had turned white. Weren't these 2 old geezers idle? The little girl didn't do anything, but the 2 of them started to fight. 4 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Because most of the arrows were desperately shooting at Yun Chujio's spiritual energy shield, and Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao successfully completed the mission. Both of them were extremely happy. Junior sister Little Nine, it's all thanks to you. Otherwise, the 2 of us would still need at least a month to last 4 hours, and Lin Chuan said excitedly. Yes, thank you, Little Ninth Junior sister. Actually, this second stage is very difficult for US spirit cultivators, but it's not worth mentioning when we encounter sword cultivators. Unfortunately, most of the people in our primordial chaos sect are spirit cultivators, Shangguan Hao said casually. Yun Chujio suddenly stood up from the small horse stance. Senior brother Shangguan, what did you say? Shangguan Hao was shocked. What was wrong with this little 9th junior sister? However, he still explained, I mean, if you are a sword cultivator, you can block these arrows with your sword chi. What if there is no sword chi and sword will? A certain Jiu asked with slight excitement. Before Shangguan Hao could say anything, and Lin Chuan laughed out loud. Junior sister Jiu, it seems like you don't know anything about sword cultivation. Sword cultivators can only comprehend sword intent after cultivating sword chi. Besides, sword intent isn't like cabbages. Not every sword cultivator can comprehend sword intent. That might not be the case. There are also those who can comprehend sword intent before cultivating sword chi. Yun Chujia's eyes flashed as she said, and Lin Chuan smiled and did not argue with Yun Chujio. He felt that junior sister Jiao might have been struck dumb by the arrows just now, so she spoke nonsense. And Lin Chuan did not mention it again, and Yun Chujio did not continue. She thought that she could try her chicken slaughtering swordsmanship later. Although this swordsmanship did not have any offensive ability, it should not be a problem to use sword intent to block the arrows. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were afraid that Yun Chujio would get angry, so they avoided this topic and started chatting. Of course, at the beginning, it was the three of them who talked, but in the end, it was a certain Jiao who gave the speech alone. Anyway, the things that this guy had experienced were all strange. One of them was enough to talk for a long time. In addition, she talked vividly, so and Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao listened with great interest. The people in the meeting hall couldn't hear what they were saying. In any case, they could only see Yun Chujio talking in high spirits, while the two silly boys listened attentively. Mountain Master In and Mountain Master Shen simply couldn't bear to look at her. They decided that after Lin Chuan and the others came out, they would definitely cut off their interaction with that bad news bag. Otherwise, if they were sold, they would have to help count the money. However, that little girl was really heartless. Wasn't she worried that the mission wouldn't be completed? Elder Jing snorted coldly. I think she has completely given up. If you don't believe me, look at the next round of the mission. She will definitely use her spiritual energy barrier to protect herself. Although Mountain Master he wasn't too confident in his heart. He still said stubbornly, I think that the little girl must have thought of a good idea. If you don't believe me, let's bet. I bet 100,000 high-grade spiritual stones. I bet that the little girl will definitely complete the mission this time. Do you dare to bet? Elder Jing glanced at him with disdain. Let's bet then. You're going to lose for sure. These people were also bored to death, so they began to place their bets one after another. The vast majority of them placed their bets on Elder Jing's side. Only Mountain Master Zhuo weakly expressed his support for Mountain Master He. Mountain Master He grinned and said, Brother Zhuo has good eyesight. We're going to win for sure. That little girl can even break out of the Azura prison. Why would she be afraid of those broken arrows? Mountain Master Zhuo thought that he didn't have much confidence in himself. However, he knew that that little girl was someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. No matter what, this would show her attitude. When she came out, it would also be a show of merit. Master Bailey looked at everyone speechlessly. Of course, he wouldn't get involved. However, in his heart, he felt that Mountain Master he was bound to lose. Although that little girl had a belly full of bad water, these arrows weren't something that bad water could deal with. While everyone was making a racket, the Tranquil Heart Cave had already begun to prompt for the start of the second Calming Heart mission. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were both dumbfounded when they saw that the little girl took out a large kitchen knife from her storage ring and made a strange pose. Then she shouted, the first style of killing chickens. Snip. And Lin Chuan sat down on the ground. It was over. Junior sister Jiao had gone mad. Shangguan Hao was slightly stronger than him. He staggered and managed to stabilize himself. He thought to himself, junior sister Jiao's words just now were quite normal. How did she suddenly go mad? Although the people in the meeting hall didn't hear Yun Chujia's first move of killing chickens, everyone still saw Yun Chujia's weird posture. Mountain Master and said disdainfully, could that little girl have gone crazy? Mountain Master He, Mountain Master Zhuo, looks like your spirit stones are going to be lost. Mountain Master He was even more uncertain. However, he didn't want to lose, so he grinned. What do you know? This little girl might be using some kind of surprise method to win. Mountain Master and pursed his lips. Surprise method? What kind of surprise? Using a broken kitchen knife to win? What a joke. Mountain Master He's old face turned red from the rebuke, and he said casually, Humph. What do you know? Maybe this little girl wants to learn sword cultivation and use her sword energy to force back those arrows. Mountain Masterin and the others were laughing so hard that they fell back. Elder Jing said from the side, "Is there something wrong with your head? Sword energy? She's not a sword cultivator, how can she have sword energy? Besides, can that broken kitchen knife produce sword energy?" Mountain Master he was rendered speechless. He glared at Mountain Master Zhua, meaning, "Why don't you help?" Mountain Master Zhua thought to himself, "That's nonsense. How can you ask him to help? Could it be that this little girl can really use her sword aura? That's impossible." While they were arguing, Yun Chujio had already practiced the chicken slaughtering swordsmanship once. And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao didn't dare to disturb her. They thought to themselves, this junior sister Jio is most likely a demon. It's better to wait and see first. At this moment, the second meditation task was officially activated. Countless arrows shot towards Yun Chujio, and Lin Xuan closed his eyes. Although it did not cause much damage, the sight of him being shot like a hedgehog was still too horrible to look at. The image of Yun Chujio being shot like a hedgehog appeared in his mind. He heard Shangguan Hao beside him exclaim, "Sword intent." And Lin Xuan thought to himself, "It's over. Even senior brother Shangguan has become a demon. Sword intent? Unless he saw a ghost, there would be no sword intent." However, he still opened his eyes and saw that although there were many arrows shooting towards Yun Chujio, they all fell about 3 feet away from Yun Chujio's body. And Lin Xuan got up and rubbed his eyes. Then he asked Shangguan Hao, who was dumbstruck, this is really sword intent? Isn't junior sister Jio a spirit cultivator?" Shangguan Hao said with a stiff face, and she doesn't have sword chi, but that is indeed sword intent. The two felt as if they had stayed in this tranquil heart cave for more than 2 months, and the immortal essence continent had become unrecognizable. Oh God, since when could spirit cultivators comprehend sword intent? And it was without sword chi? Besides, what kind of chicken slaughtering sword technique did junior sister Jio use? Why did it look like she was randomly dancing? How could she release sword intent like this? What the hell? The two of them were shocked. It was as quiet as death in the meeting hall. Even Mountain Master he, who was originally shouting that Yun Chujio would release sword chi, was dumbfounded. He was really just casually saying it. He did not expect the little girl to give him such a big surprise. What nonsense sword chi? She did not care about it, but she directly released sword intent. What did sword intent represent? Even a sword cultivator who had many years of experience might not be able to comprehend sword intent. He did not expect that this little girl would casually use a broken kitchen knife to make a few gestures, and sword intent would be released. It was great. This is so satisfying. After Mountain Master he regained his senses. His grin was so wide that it seemed like he was going to fly into the sky. How is it? I was afraid of scaring you guys just now, so I only said that she could release her sword chi. Did you see that? Sword intent. Does sword intent know? Not to mention these illusory arrows, even if it were real arrows, they wouldn't be able to hurt her in the slightest. Say, are you guys convinced? Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Mountain Master An's face flushed red. Even in his dreams, he had never thought that Yun Chujio would actually be able to release her sword intent. The matter was laid out here, and even if he wanted to deny it, he wouldn't be able to deny it. Seeing that they didn't say anything, Mountain Master he became even more proud. Come, hurry up and transfer the spirit stones that you lost to me and Mountain Master Zhua. If it were up to me, I'd say that Mountain Master Zhua has a discerning eye, and shares the same thoughts as my hero, Mountain Master Zhuo was much more low-key than Mountain Master he. He deliberately changed the topic and said, "Everyone, what kind of sword intent do you think Yun Chujio released? It seems to be quite different from what I've seen before." Mountain Master and snorted coldly. That little girl is unreliable. The sword intent she released is naturally unreliable as well. Who cares what kind of sword intent she has? Old Jing, Hurry up and get someone to activate the third calming heart mission. I'd like to see if she can still pass it. Elder Jing's expression became even uglier. He felt that he had lost all his face. Ever since he met Yun Chujio, all his glory in the past had vanished into thin air. Thus, he immediately took out his identity jade token and sent a message to his disciples, asking them to activate the third calming heart mission immediately after the second calming heart mission was completed. And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao, who were inside the cave, only recovered from their shock at this moment. They looked at Yun Chujio, who was waving her large kitchen knife with admiration. At this moment, the ugly posture and the unrated name of the sword technique were not important anymore. The sword intent was more important. Junior sister Little Jio, a spirit cultivator, could actually comprehend the sword intent. What a magical existence! When Yun Chujio finished her mission, she saw Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao looking at her with admiration. The corner of Yun Chujio's mouth twitched. What did they mean? Junior sister Xiao Jio, I didn't expect you to really comprehend sword intent. You are too powerful. Right, what sword intent did you comprehend? Is it the fast sword intent, the slow sword intent, or the water sword intent? And Lin Xuan asked with admiration. My sword intent is special. Cough cough, it's the chaotic sword intent. Yun Chujio laughed dryly. And Lin Xuan, Shangguan Hao, sword intent of chaos? There was such a sword intent? But that was also true. The moves that junior sister Little Nine made just now seemed really messy. But no matter what, the sword intent was awesome. Who cared about the sword intent? When the two were about to ask in detail, they heard the voice of the mission. The third meditation mission has been activated. Fuck? Are you trying to exhaust us to death? And Lin Xuan said angrily. Yun Chujio's eyes flickered. Come on, let's finish these bullshit missions as soon as possible so that she can go out. She still wanted to go to school and find a way to get struck by lightning. She didn't have the time to waste in this meditation cave. Yun Chujio asked Lin Xuan curiously, Senior brother, what is the content of the third mission? And Lin Xuan said in a bad mood, the third mission seems to be the easiest. Damn it, it's very abnormal. It is to walk from one end of the bridge to the other end within 4 hours. As long as you walk there, you will pass. But, Senior brother Shangguan and I can only walk to the middle of the bridge. We still can't reach the end. Then what is the reason? Is there an illusion array? Yun Chujio asked in confusion. If there's only an illusory formation, it would be easier. Just keep your mind clear. The main reason is that there's a huge pressure that makes it impossible for you to keep your mind clear. You'll unknowingly fall into the illusory formation, and Lin Xuan said in annoyance. Yun Chujio nodded. Humans had all sorts of emotions and desires. Sometimes, even though she knew it was an illusion, it was easy for her to lose herself under the pressure of external forces. Therefore, it was not difficult to understand why Lin Xuan and Chujio felt that this mission was abnormal. Of course, to a certain Jio, this mission did not seem to be a mission at all. Pressure? No matter how strong the pressure was, how could it be as strong as the pressure of heavenly thunder? Illusion array? What a joke! Even if the black bead didn't warn her, Yun Chujio could still keep her consciousness clear, let alone the black bead. However, she still decided to put on a show and pretend to fail just in case something went wrong. At this time, an arch bridge appeared in front of the three of them. It was just an ordinary stone arch bridge, and there was no difference at all. And Lin Xuan and Shangguan Hao gave Yun Chujio a few instructions before they went onto the bridge. Yun Chujio noticed that beads of sweat were starting to drip down from their foreheads. It was obvious that they were already under pressure. The first half of their journey was rather smooth. However, they stopped in the middle and their expressions changed. And Lin Xuan's expression became extremely excited. He did not know what good things had happened in the illusion. Shangguan Hao, on the other hand, had a pained expression. He had probably fallen into some kind of painful illusion. Yun Chujio felt that she had observed enough, so she stepped onto the stone bridge as well. The people in the meeting hall realized that Yun Chujio was taking every step with great difficulty, so they immediately switched to self-congratulatory mode. Che, how was it? I told you that Yun Chujio wouldn't be able to grow a rabbit's tail, right? She has a stomach full of bad ideas, so there are a lot of twists and turns in her head. It's easier for her to fall into an illusory formation than others. In my opinion, she might not be able to reach the other end of the bridge even after 3 years. Mountain Master and felt that he had regained the face he had lost just now. He felt extremely pleased with himself. Elder Jing chimed in from the side. That's right. The first 2 rounds of missions were just a small test, but the third round of missions has truly become more difficult. What do you think? Mountain Master do you still want to bet? Mountain Master saw Yun Chujio struggling with every step she took, and to be honest, he really didn't have the confidence. However, one couldn't lose when losing, so he gritted his teeth and said, this first attempt doesn't count. We have to let her familiarize herself with it, right? So this time doesn't count. If she still can't pass next time, you'll lose 100,000 spirit stones to you. After saying that, Mountain Master glanced at Mountain Master Joie and Mountain Master Joie with his eyes and forced a smile. He could only say, I still agree with Mountain Master his opinion this time, so I'll bet with him. Mountain Master nodded in satisfaction. He had never realized that this Mountain Master Joie was so loyal before. It seemed that they could have a good relationship in the future. As for Mountain Master Shin and the others, they naturally followed Elder Jing's bet. They felt that even in Linchuan and Shangguan Hao, who had practiced for more than 2 months, could not resist the pressure, let alone Yun Chujio. Then what kind of illusion had a certain Jiu fallen into at this moment? After stepping onto the stone arch bridge, the so-called extremely powerful pressure was basically negligible. What this person was more concerned about was what kind of illusion she would fall into. If she could see Chi-Chi or the Gigolo, it wouldn't be too bad. Then she would stay in the illusion for a while longer. Unfortunately, the illusion she fell into didn't have Chi-Chi or the Gigolo. Instead, there was a swaying grass. Fuck! Wasn't that Go Weiba? However, the place where Go Weiba grew was a little strange. Hun Dun was in the surroundings and it was dark. There were only a few rocks on the ground. Guai Chao was swaying in the middle of a pile of rocks. It looked quite comfortable. Yun Chujio thought to herself that she had no way to deal with that damned Go Weiba in reality. Now that it was an illusion, she could deal with it. Yun Chujio laughed sinisterly, then squatted in front of Guai Chao. Go Weiba, I didn't expect you to have such a day. Little fellow, did you think that one day you would fall into my hands? This fellow felt that Di Baiming's HM was the most pretentious, so he borrowed it. Guai Chao's leaves curled up into the shape of a heart, acting cute and begging for mercy. Don't play this game with me. If not for you, I would have eaten all the pretty boys. If not for you, I would have raised a bunch of little monkeys with the pretty boys. I have to think about how to torture you to get rid of the hatred in my heart. Slash? Burn? Fry? Every time Yun Chujio mentioned a method, Guai Chao would tremble. In the end, the trembling was almost like a wave. Yun Chujio was extremely happy. This illusion was really good. Finally, she could teach Go Weiba a good lesson. Yun Chujio took out a large kitchen knife. She was eager to cut the Guai Chao and dig out its roots. Then the Guai Chao would die. Yun Chujio raised her hand high. The leaves of the Guai Chao formed the shape of a heart again. It trembled non-stop as if it was begging for mercy. Yun Chujio's hand could not go down no matter what. Although the Guai Chao was detestable, it had accompanied her for a long time and helped her resolve the crisis countless times. If she killed it just like that, she wouldn't be able to bear it. So, should she cut it or not? Yun Chujio hesitated for a long time and finally withdrew her hand. Even though she knew that this was an illusion, she still couldn't bear to kill the Guai Chao like this. The Guai Chao seemed to have understood that the crisis had been resolved. It wagged its leaves proudly, just like how Go Weiba used to show off. Yun Chujio could not help but be angry and happy. She took out a brush from her storage ring and wrote words like Go Weiba and Dreg's grass on the leaves of Go Weiba. Yun Chujio put the brush into her storage ring, Then she pointed at the strange grass and said, "Go away, Ba, although you have harmed me a few times, you have also saved me a few times. Let's call it even. I hope that you will take care of yourself in the future. I hope that we will not really fight to the death in the future." After saying that, Yun Chujio stood up and looked at the surrounding environment. She felt that the environment here was somewhat familiar. The sky was low and heavy, as if she could get it with just a raise of her hand. There was no sun, no clouds, and other than rocks, there was only that Guai Chao. I remember now. The forbidden area of the Temple of Immortals was also like this. It was said that Hun Dun was sealed inside. Could it be that this place was also an unopened land of Hun Dun? Could it be that the Guai Chao existed before Hun Dun was opened? Yun Chujio shook her head. She was really confused. This was an illusion. It was nothing more than a figment of her imagination. It was likely that Zhang Guan and Dai Li had planted the Guai Chao in the original land of Hun Dun. Yun Chujio saw that there was nothing interesting here, so she used her spiritual sense to clear her mind. The guy opened his eyes secretly. She saw that Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were still on the bridge, so it was not good for him to continue walking, so she went to sleep on the bridge. The meeting hall was in an uproar. "Is Yun Chujio dead?" Mountain Master and said in surprise. Although he didn't like the little girl, he didn't want to kill her. Why was she lying there? Could it be that the pressure was too strong and she died? "Old Jing, you are going too far. Even though that little girl is unreliable, you can't kill her." Mountain Master Shen didn't want to be an accomplice to murder. He hurriedly jumped out to blame Elder Jing. Elder Jing was holding his breath. Who was supporting him just now? And now one or two of them were blaming him. Besides, although he had made some moves, he had only increased the pressure a little. How could he die? Mountain Master, he raised his loud voice and said angrily, "Old Jing, I didn't expect that you would do anything to take revenge on that little girl. Why don't you hurry up and ask your disciple to end the mission? Maybe that little girl just fainted. Don't kill her." Elder Jing's heart was like a beeping dog. He had never heard of anyone who had experienced an illusory formation and played himself to death in such a short time. If this little girl died, he really wouldn't be able to defend himself. Just as Elder Jing was about to order his disciple to end the mission, the 4-hour deadline arrived and the mission automatically ended. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were stunned for a moment before they woke up from the illusion. The two of them looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It still didn't work. It seemed that they still needed to train for a few more days. And Lin Chuan turned his head and saw Yun Chujio lying on the ground. The mission was over and the bridge was withdrawn. This fellow naturally lay on the ground. And Lin Chuan was shocked. Junior sister little Jio. Junior sister little Jio. Could it be that junior sister Xiaojio had been killed by the pressure? That's right, her spiritual power was only at the 6th layer of the Lingxian realm. How could she withstand such a great pressure? At this moment, Yun Chujio opened her eyes and sat up, then stretched. "It's over? I saw a bed in the illusion just now, and I fell asleep while lying on it." And Lin Chuan, Shangguan Hao, there was such an illusion. How badly do you want to sleep? You can even fall asleep in the illusion. However, it was true. After such a torturous experience, it should be nighttime outside. It was indeed time to sleep. The three of them briefly exchanged their experiences and then found a place to sleep. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao just laid on the ground. A certain Jiao was much more complicated. This fellow took out a universal tent and went into it. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao glanced at each other speechlessly. This junior sister Jiao really knew how to enjoy herself. Eating hot pot and living in a tent. She wasn't here to calm her mind, she was here to take a stroll. At this moment, the atmosphere in the meeting hall was very subtle. Mountain Master and Mountain Master Shen looked embarrassed. They had just accused Elder Jing of causing the death of Yun Chujio, but who would have thought that not only was the little girl not dead, she was also alive and kicking. It was really a little awkward. Mountain Master, he had a carefree personality, but he didn't think much of it. He laughed and said, "That old Jing, I wronged you just now." I didn't expect that nothing happened to that little girl. She probably slept in the illusion. Elder Jing snorted. He wouldn't admit it. Seeing that Yun Chujio wasn't dead, he also heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, Mountain Master Zhua said weakly, did you guys forget about a problem? The crowd looked at Mountain Master Zhua in confusion. What problem? In an illusion, people will have changes in their expressions of joy, anger, sorrow, and joy. At most, they will have some minor body movements. I've never heard of anyone who can change from standing to lying down. Mountain Master Zhua stopped here. He believed that everyone understood his underlying meaning. You mean that she actually woke up from the illusion before she fell to the ground? And then deliberately lay there to sleep? Mountain Master, he raised his voice and said. Mountain Master Zhua nodded his head. I think so. Besides, when she woke up just now, she didn't look lost at all. Instead, she seemed to have been woken up by an Linchuan. That's not right. Since she woke up, why didn't she walk to the end of the bridge to complete the mission? Instead, she took a nap? Mountain Master, he asked in confusion. For a moment, no one answered his question. They felt that they were all wrong. They thought that little girl was a mischievous character, a troublemaker. They didn't expect that she actually knew how to hide her true strength. Putting aside the issue of her clear spiritual sense, just the fact that she could fall asleep under such a great pressure showed that she was completely unafraid of that pressure. The reason why she slept was clearly because she did not intend to expose the fact that she was unafraid of pressure. They had really underestimated her. Mountain Master, he slapped his thigh. So the little girl is hiding her strength. But that's true. She has a heavenly thunder spirit root. Is the pressure of heavenly thunder not greater than that of a human? She naturally has a stronger ability to resist pressure than an ordinary person. Old Jing, we won this round again. When the mission starts again, she'll definitely pass smoothly. I told you, I have a good eye. Mountain Master Zhua looked at him speechlessly. Having such a pig teammate was actually quite tiring. Why are you bringing up the bet now? Aren't you urging Elder Jing to increase the difficulty of the mission? Sure enough, Elder Jing's expression changed a few times. He took out his identity jade token and said something, a faint trace of pride on his face. They were also a little tired, so they all sat in meditation on the spot, waiting for the arrival of the next day. The next day, Yun Chujio and the others had just eaten breakfast, and the meditation mission was activated again. Yun Chujio had already thought it through. This time, she controlled her speed slightly, and when it was almost 4 hours, she would pass the mission. However, as soon as she stepped on the stone bridge, she felt as if 10,000 divine beasts had whizzed past her heart. The pressure was indeed gone, but could anyone explain why her feet seemed to be stuck on the stone bridge and couldn't move at all? Elder Jing, who was in the meeting hall, was very pleased with himself. Who would have thought that he had added a confinement formation on the stone bridge? Others must have thought that Yun Chujio couldn't move because she had fallen into an illusion, but in reality, she was confined there. Haha. Let's see how that old he can still be proud of himself. The Mountain Master, he exclaimed. That's not right. Why did she stop moving after just one step? She fell into an illusion so quickly? How is that possible? How is that not possible? Although that little girl isn't afraid of pressure, she's full of tricks. It's normal for her to fall into an illusion early on, Mountain Master said from the side. He felt that he had lost some face yesterday, so he naturally vented his anger on Yun Chujio, who was playing dead. Mountain Master, he defended himself with a few words. His originally confident heart suddenly became uncertain. Could it be that this little girl really couldn't pass? Yun Chujio couldn't move any part of her body except for her eyeballs. She was so depressed that she wanted to vomit blood. The person behind this mission was even more wicked than her. She could not move her body. Even if there was no pressure or illusion, she could not move even half a step. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. And Linchuan and Shangguan Hao were still more than half of the stone bridge, trapped in the illusion. As for a certain Jiao, She still maintained the posture of taking the first step and stood there bitterly. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Yun Chujio had scolded the people behind the scenes a few hundred times, but it wasn't a certain Jio's character to just obediently submit. There must be a way. Let her think about it. As she thought about it, her eyes lit up. She couldn't move, but she could command the large kitchen knife to move. Thus, this guy commanded the large kitchen knife to start. Yes, to cut the bridge. Everyone in the meeting hall was dumbfounded. This wasn't right. If she was in an illusion, why would she have a large kitchen knife? And that large kitchen knife was still cutting the bridge? Mountain Master, he was stunned at first, then he stomped his feet and scolded, "Old Jing, you're too unethical." It turns out that the little girl didn't fall into an illusion at all. You used a confinement formation. You are too wicked. Elder Jing's face turned red. Humph. This was because that little girl wasn't afraid of the pressure, so it made it a little more difficult for her. What are you shouting for? Besides, I only confined her body, not her spiritual power. Didn't she break the confinement formation already? Mountain Master, he looked up. Sure enough, Yun Chujio regained her freedom after a few cuts with the big kitchen knife. At this time, she had already jumped to the middle of the bridge. Apparently, she had really fallen into the illusion this time. The illusion that Yun Chujio had fallen into this time was not as interesting as the previous one. It was nothing more than a bunch of demonic beasts surrounding her. Yun Chujio moved her spiritual sense and had already left the illusion. This fellow felt that since the person behind her had used the confinement formation to deal with her, there was nothing to hide. Thus, he directly jumped to the end of the stone bridge. However, after this incident, Yun Chujio had some thoughts. The confinement array just now only confined her body. If even her spiritual power was confined, then she wouldn't be able to release the big kitchen knife. No, I must get a knife sheath after I go out this time and carry the big kitchen knife with me. I wanted to do that last time, but I forgot about it later. Also, I can't always count on the big kitchen knife. Her body was confined and her spiritual power was confined. But since her mind was clear, then her spiritual sense should be able to move. If only her spiritual sense could attack. In that case, no matter what situation she encountered, she would have this trump card to be invincible. This fellow felt that the remnant souls she encountered before were equivalent to using spiritual sense to attack. Since they could do it, why couldn't she? The more she thought about it, the more excited she became. She made up her mind to practice spiritual sense attack after she left the meditation cave. When she succeeded, she would definitely be awesome. The more she thought about it, the more beautiful she became. Her face was practically smiling like a flower. Xiao Hanio, who was inside the spirit beast pouch, could not take it anymore. He reminded her, "Master, it's too early for you to be happy. Even if it's a remnant soul, it's still formed by countless spiritual senses. What you can send out is just a small strand of spiritual sense. What kind of offensive power can it have? Moreover, once the spiritual sense you sent out is damaged, your spiritual sense will be damaged. It's simply not worth the loss. I advise you to put this idea out of your mind as soon as possible." Didn't I use my spiritual sense to attack those monsters in the Tianluo arcane realm before? Not only me, but other students have also succeeded. Why can't I? Xiao Hanio said with disdain, "Master, that's because those monsters are transformed from the spiritual sense of big monsters. That's why your spiritual sense attack is effective. If you want to use your spiritual sense to attack a real body, that's impossible." Yun Chujio said unwillingly, "Why not? The ancient books say that there are people who can save the world with one thought and destroy the world with one thought. Obviously, spiritual sense can be trained to be very powerful." Xiao Hanio rolled his eyes. "Master, they are talking about gods." "Gods, do you know? Even gods can tear through the void. Of course, their spiritual sense can be very abnormal. You are just a weak chicken, don't daydream." Chapter 2800. Yun Chujio almost lost her breath. Xiao Hei, how dare you call me a weakling? Who's more like a chicken? That's why you're the weakling. And you call yourself a black phoenix, bah. You're just a weakling. No, a fallen phoenix is not as good as a chicken. You're even worse than a weakling, you're just a piece of trash. This young master is obviously doing this for your own good. How dare you scold me? Wah, this young master will ignore you. Xiao Hanio's pizzazed eyes were filled with anger. It was obvious that she was very angry. Yun Chujio touched her nose guiltily and decided to let Xiao Hanio calm down. Time would heal everything. Yes, that was it. After a while, 4 hours had passed. And Linchuan and Shangguan House still failed the mission. However, the two of them were mentally prepared and did not care too much. However, when the two learned that Yun Chujio had actually completed the mission, they felt that their confidence, which they had always been proud of, had suffered a blow. Although the little girl was a handyman and was only at the 6th level of the Lingxian realm, she was not only smarter than them, but she could also release sword intent. Now, even her divine sense was clearer than theirs. It was really impossible to live. Obviously, someone was even more miserable than them. How is it? Old Jing, even if you cheated, the little girl still easily completed the mission. Hurry up and transfer all the spirit stones to us. Right, Old Jing, why don't you change the 5 missions to 100? Then he'll be rich. Mountain Master, he felt really proud. They didn't even know how to show off. Elder Jing's expression was so ugly that it almost turned into a purple eggplant. He gritted his teeth and said, "Cut the crap. Do you still want to bet on the 4th mission?" Yes. Not only in the 4th round, but also in the 5th round. I still want to bet that the little girl will pass the mission twice. This time, I'll bet 1,000,000. Do you dare to follow? Mountain Master Zhua, are you still on my side? Mountain Master He's confidence was unprecedentedly strong. He felt that although this Tranquil Heart Cave mission was difficult for others, it was a piece of cake for Yun Chujio. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. Mountain Master Zhua really wanted to pretend that he hadn't heard anything. 1,000,000 per round, 2 rounds would be 2,000,000. What if he were to lose? The further they went, the more difficult it became. No matter how perverse the little girl was, she couldn't always be so smooth sailing, right? Although Mountain Master Zhua was cursing in his heart, he still smiled and said, "Naturally, I still agree with Mountain Master He's opinion." Elder Jing and the others were not willing to be outdone, so the bet was raised from 100,000 to 1,000,000. Master Bailey looked at the roof speechlessly. Why did he feel that this was not the Primordial Chaos sect but a casino? The people below were not the Mountain Master elders, but rather gamblers? How tiring! At this moment, Yun Chujio and the other two were chatting idly. Yun Chujio asked, "Senior brothers, what is the content of Task 4? Tell me about it first so that I can be mentally prepared." And Linchuan showed a sympathetic expression. Junior sister Xiaojiu, actually, Mission 4 is not too difficult for the two of us. We have already completed the mission long ago, but it seems to be a little difficult for you. What mission? Yun Chujio could not help but feel puzzled. Why was it even more difficult for her? Could it be that the mission was divided into men and women? The 4th round of the mission is to recite the proverbs on the wall. We also recited them for almost 10 days before we managed to recite them all. You haven't had the chance to recite them yet, so I'm afraid that we won't be able to pass the 4th round of the mission for the time being, and Linchuan explained. Yun Chujio, could she say that this was a bonus question? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and asked, "Do you want to memorize them all or do you want to do a random check?" "Of course I want to do a random check. It will take a long time to memorize them all." And Linchuan answered, "That's easy. I'm always lucky. I'll pick a few random people to memorize. Maybe the ones I memorize will be the ones I memorize." Yun Chujio stood up and looked at the motto on the stone wall. And Linchuan and Shangguan Hao looked at each other. This junior sister Jiao was good in every way, but she loved to brag too much. There were hundreds of proverbs on the wall. How could the ones she picked be the ones she memorized? Inside the meeting hall, Mountain Master his intestines were almost turning green with regret. He had been so excited just now that he had forgotten that the fourth mission was to recite the proverbs. It was over, it was over. He was going to lose this round for sure. The little girl had only been in there for a day and had not had the time to look at the proverbs, let alone recite them. It would be a miracle if she could pass this. In stark contrast to his dejected expression, Elder Jing and the others were naturally the ones. They could finally win back a city. Moreover, the stake this time was 1 million. Very soon, the fourth mission of Calming Heart was activated. The mission voice asked, "Please answer the content of the 125th Proverbs." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. "I don't know." "Please answer the content of the 216th Maxim." "I don't know." "Please answer the content of the 358th Maxim." "I don't know." And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao looked speechlessly at a certain Jiao who didn't know anything. Wasn't this guy bragging just now? Why did he only say he did not know now? Very soon, the mission ended. A certain Jiao received a big 0 with honor and did not answer a single maxim correctly. Without waiting for Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao to speak, this fellow ridiculed himself. My luck this time is a little bad. I didn't remember all the tests. I guess my luck won't be so bad next time." And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao looked at her speechlessly. "Keep bragging. Forget about the next time, you might not even be able to pass in another 5 days." In the meeting hall, Mountain Master he felt that the tide had already turned. It was over. This 1 million was just wasted. Yet he was the one who suggested to raise the stakes. He was really throwing stones at his own feet. Elder Jing and the others naturally couldn't help but mock him. They almost started fighting again, but fortunately, they were stopped by Master Bailey. Master Bailey only had one wish now, and that was to end these 5 missions as soon as possible. He wanted these things that couldn't be transferred back to their respective peaks, so that they wouldn't cause trouble for him. Mountain Master he felt stifled in his heart. When he saw that Mountain Master Zhuo was sitting there calmly, he immediately said in a bad mood, "Mountain Master Zhuo, why didn't you stop me just now?" Mountain Master Zhuo felt like he was cursing a dog in his heart. He actually wanted to stop him, but he didn't have the time. Moreover, even if he stopped it, this fellow wouldn't listen. And now he was blaming him, as if he hadn't lost 1 million spirit stones. Mountain Master he saw Mountain Master Zhuo's displeased expression and immediately knew that he had misspoken. He grinned and said, "Mountain Master Zhuo, I was just saying that, don't take it to heart. If you want to blame someone, blame that little girl. Look, she's already on fire, yet she's still chewing on the spirit fruit. Why does the spiritual fruit she's chewing look like the jade Ganoderma in the courtyard of the Kaiyang Peak Law Enforcement Hall?" Elder Jing snorted coldly. "Wasn't it because she stole it last time? It's because of this that the inner sect disciples of Shuangyang Peak had a conflict with her." Mountain Master he was stunned for a moment, then slapped his thigh. "I remember now. Not only did this little girl pick the jade Ganoderma, but she also went around and said that you did something indescribable. Elder Jing really wanted to slap himself in the face, so that he could shut his mouth. Two hours later, the fourth meditation task in the Cave of Tranquility was activated again. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao had lost hope in Yun Chujio, so they sat cross-legged on the ground and began to meditate. Please answer the content of the 237th maxim. If you are cautious, you will be at ease. If you are respectful, you will be strong. Please answer the content of the 197th maxim. If you follow it, what is your crime? Please answer the content of the 365th maxim. A gentleman is virtuous, but if you look foolish, mission passed. And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao opened their eyes in surprise. They were both correct? Did junior sister Jiao really have dog, shit, and luck? Did she know how to do all the random checks? Yun Chujio turned around and smiled smugly. How was it? I told you that my luck has always been good. Yun Chujio's words came to an abrupt end because she realized that the Cave of Tranquility was beginning to tremble violently. What was going on? And Lin Chuan and Shangguan Hao were also shocked. Why was the Cave of Tranquility trembling all of a sudden? Almost at the same time, thousands of miles around the primordial chaos sect began to tremble. Master Bailey, who was in the meeting hall, shouted, "Oh no! The Earth Dragon has turned over. Quickly let me ride my sword into the air to avoid being hurt by the Earth Chi." The people in the meeting hall couldn't care less about the bet anymore. They quickly informed their disciples to ride their swords into the air. The ground began to tremble violently. The demonic beasts at the back of the mountain let out terrified roars. The trees and houses began to collapse. Cracks began to appear on the ground, and Earth Chi began to jump out. The people in the air watched with fear and trepidation. Many of them had never seen the Earth Dragon turn over. They had only heard about it from others. They thought that it was a little exaggerated, but they didn't expect it to be so terrifying. Master Bailey heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Although the Earth Dragon turnover this time had Earth Chi gushing out, it wasn't too serious and should be over soon. At this moment, Mountain Master cried out, "Lin Chuan! Lin Chuan and the others are still inside Jingxin Cave." Only then did Mountain Master Shen remember that his precious disciple Shangguan Hao was still inside Jingxin Cave. Everyone still had a sliver of hope in their hearts. Perhaps the disciples of the Tranquil Heart Cave had released the three of them when they were retreating. However, when they asked, those disciples were in a hurry to escape, so they didn't have the time to care about the three people inside the cave. Therefore, those three people were still inside the Tranquil Heart Cave. And the worst thing was that there was already a bottomless crack in the Tranquil Heart Cave, and Earth Chi was constantly gushing out. Not to mention Yun Chujiu and the other two, even if Master Bailey encountered such a situation, there was no chance of survival. Mountain Master and Mountain Master Shen almost fell off the treasured sword. It was over. Lin Chuan and the others were definitely dead. If they had known this would happen, they would have gotten someone to release them first, and then arrange for the other disciples. The two wanted to go down to check, but they were stopped by the crowd. Earth Chi was gushing out from below, and there was only one result if they went down, and that was death. Mountain Master, he sighed. He did not expect that the crowd would be so excited to make a bet just a moment ago, and that it would be life and death in the next moment. Life was truly unpredictable. It was a pity that 3 good children lost their lives just like that. Of course, the one who blamed himself the most was Elder Jing. He was in charge of Calming Heart Cave, and the disciples guarding it were all under his management. If they made a mistake, he would naturally bear the blame. After a few hours, everything returned to normal. The Chaos Origin sect could be described as a complete mess. Apart from some of the main halls, 90% of the houses had collapsed, and the original Calming Heart Cave had also collapsed into ruins. The huge crack that cut through the Calming Heart Cave had already closed up, as if nothing had happened. However, Yun Chujiu and the other two were nowhere to be found. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.